you today? Excellent. My talk is based on the world as object. And today I will take you on a journey to kind of not only look at my artwork, but also to talk about ideas around transformation through the lens of the black male body in sports. We live in a world where sight is given more prominence than any of the senses. What we eat, what we see, what we experience, it's constantly fed to us through social media, TikTok, through all these different filters. And today, we're going to try to break that. Let's take a look. World is object. I'm from Guyana, South America. I came here at the age of 3, and my family always celebrated these amazing carnivals. These were opportunities for us to think about our own cultural ancestry, but also transform ourselves in these moments. I remember my mom, dad, family members creating these beautiful costumes, and these costumes were transformative. This is a queen mask that you see in front of you. This is a jumbi. A jumbi is an African spirit that comes from the ancestral past, that comes up to celebrate one's not only identity, but one's space of transformation. Here's another example of a king mask, where the male wears the mask and dances with it, and there's actors in the back that help to move the hands and forms through space. So seeing art for me was cultural, right? How do you understand and perceive the world through something you feel every day and you see? But in the form, I was able to listen to sound. One of my icons and heroes was Martin Luther King, but also Bob Marley. And so obviously I have the locks, as you can see, right? And not only just the experience of the music, but the idea of peace and holistic transformation that he tried to bring with his music. Here I am. In 1995, I was a athlete playing basketball, right? At a private school in Maine. I was on a full scholarship. But while I was there, I was still drawing, writing poetry, and painting to myself, just quietly. No one knew that the star athlete was an artist. I'm working currently on a memoir with Seth Rogoff, and I'm going to read a small excerpt from this memoir. He actually wrote a book for Kendrick Perkins called Memoirs of His Life. So it's 1996, and I'm sitting there in the lecture hall at Brandeis University. So this all started at Brandeis. And I'm looking at Renoir, I'm looking at Monet paintings, and I'm thinking about, where am I in these paintings? Where am I? What about my story, my cultural history? And so I continued on, played for the dice, for the judges, and at that time, once again, still working, still creating, I decided that I wanted to become an artist. So I entered into the painting studio classes, and went deeper into painting and printmaking. I was lucky enough to have a guide along the way. One of my guides was Magdalena Campos Pons, who was one of the world's renowned Cuban artists, phenomenal painter. I also had another artist and educator and guide. Her name was Robin Dash. She was a leftist Jew, just really about resistance and activation. And she supported my work too as well. Here's another guide along the way, Peter Haley. Peter Haley was the head of the painting department at Yale. And he actually introduced me to ideas of Russian constructivism, ideas of theoretical space. You should definitely check out this book. It's called Flash of the Spirit. All right, it talks about African dance and African American ideas connected through philosophy and sports. Let's jump in. My body, the lens and gaze. Stripping down the symbol, going deeper. I started painting on glass. I was a very traditional school of painting, oil, canvas, but I wanted to explore other medias. Coming out of Yale, my mind was inundated with these new concepts of how to create and generate art. Collage, digitally forming, using my own body as a context or a space for narration. in this work, I also started thinking about physical forms, sculptural forms that I could embed in. I had a show at the National Museum of African American Artists. It was my first solo show. And this is some of the work from that show. This is called Rat Race. And below you can see these mechanical rats mice are running back and forth in an actual geometric form that was taken from an actual basketball court. So I used symbols from those courts and embedded in. So I was asked to do some public projects where I engaged large communities. And one of these projects was to use objects that had either a religious or symbolic image connected to it. So I found these pews and decided to place them in the middle of a basketball court. And it was interesting, on that day, these guys who came to play, they had their bags on them, and they come in, they're like, what the hell is going on? They're like, wait, what is this? And they come up to me, and I say to them, this is actually an art experience. And for a moment, they grabbed one of the balls, and they decided to play. But they also decided to challenge me on 2-on-2 and 3-on-3. And I said, huh? Are you ready? I still got a little juice left in me. And as you can see in the far corner, I'm holding up my hand, that last bit of little follow through. You know, I still got that touch. You know, can put some points in from time to time. Excellent. So here is the beginning. This actually opened me up to this new series. It's called the Passing Series. And it's a performance piece where I memorialize or memorize or connect with my father, who passed away while I was in grad school. He passed away when I was in my second year. And one of the things he did for me was he always used to pass the ball to me as a young person. And in this series, I lay down prone, and same kind of similar way in which we think about the passage of slaves from, Africa into the New World. And I throw the ball up in the air, hoping that he can still see me below and receive it as a gift. So I walked into public spaces. Here I am at Copley. It's the sport, it's our passion, right? How do you interact with someone who just loves the game and allows you to receive it? Some people would walk by and reach. If you look in the far corner, she was like, oh, I'm about to take it away from you. And she decided not to touch it. But it was a very interesting conversation with people around the experience of activating public spaces and seeing my body in that space. Now, I had a great opportunity to collaborate with Jerry Russo, who's a phenomenal photographer. He's a photographer for the Red Sox. He's done the Patriots. He's also done Revolution. And he said, Marlon, hey, you know what? You're a nice guy. I like you. Let's collaborate together. And so in this work, we were looking at symbols that had colonial or had power, architecture, and symbols embedded in them. So we have, it's called the Passing. This is grace. Now the ball becomes different. Watch. It starts to float on its own, right? It starts to become metastasized almost in a way into the own space. The color changes, the form, the experience becomes a point of access, a point of entry. One says, what is underneath the surface, right? We talk about what's underneath the surface. But as you enter that doorway, the work continues to take you there, or at least hope as an artist we try to do. Individual play versus team play. Why do it on my own? Let's do it together, right? My game and your game. So I started creating these drawings, and these drawings were about thinking about symbols and how these symbols could be manifested. I used the number 23 for, anyone know 23, who that might represent? Anyone? Did I hear Jordan? Okay, hey, okay. Iconic figure, everyone knows that name. And so I started writing Prepare for Flight. I almost thought I was going to be taking off, right? Transmitting energy from this body into the new universe. And I started looking at Byzantine paintings and images too as well, to use as a form of introduction into that transformative space. Collage. like I said, I'm a painter, but in this time, all of my colors seem to be monochromatic, grays. I don't know, maybe the color that you saw, that ecstasy, the vibrant colors from the past was somehow stripped away. Maybe it was about my journey. And then, once again, I'm back. Another opportunity to engage public spaces. I had a gallery show at the Medicine Wheel, and I used about 5,000 balloons. And those balloons were representing for me bodies and people and forms. I knew some friends who that I played basketball with, but they weren't able to, they stopped playing and life took over. And the flight, that dream we had of being great, had dissipated. And there became pain and trauma and lack, being and voice. And then I moved to utilitarian objects, right? Objects that really, there wasn't a hierarchy. There was no need. There's nothing above you, above me, above us, right? These forms we could work on collectively. At the New Arts Center, I had an artist residency where I invited everyone in Newton in. Come on. And so I also had some instructions there, right? How to activate these ideas of play. And you had a timer, you had a certain amount of time to move from one location to the other. Raise your hand if you have heard of Periscope. Anyone hear of Periscope? Periscope was the first TikTok. The very first, check it out, write it down. And so Periscope, we utilized that, and it was the first meta experience, right? Where people in the actual installation in the space could go online, talk to friends, and see themselves at the same time, right? It's the first TikTok, and it was phenomenal. And so people started working together, right? I didn't organize, I didn't centralize, I didn't tell people how to create community. They just did it on their own, right? Abstracted forms, representational forms, but they all understood how to exist in space together on this blank, empty wall, canvas, floor, time, meaning, space. They used chalk, redesign it, engage in it form. My home, world play and local play. Pause. What do I do now? What do I do now? Textile Museum of Canada reached out to me and said, Marlon, the Pan Am Games are here. We want you to represent your country with 39 other artists from around the world. What we're going to do is we're going to take your image and we're going to embed that on a sail, and we're going to sail it in the opening day so over 10 to 20 million people can watch it from around the world. It was a true honor. I felt as an artist and also as a Guyanese that I was representing not only myself, but my country. So, our city of Boston. Once again, someone called and said, hey, Marlon, it's a great opportunity for you. So I received a large public arts commission with 1% from the City of Boston's Art and Culture Department. And I also was able to collaborate with Studio Luz, which is a local architect company. And so they allowed us to now not only take the early imagined figures and symbols of geometric form, but to make those into actual structures, large-scale public art pieces. So now I'm working on this space between Northeastern, Madison Park. It's called the DeWitt Playground. And that whole space will be, earlier they gave us, I think, 250,000, but now we're over 500,000, which is amazing, right? The idea that the sport itself, right, this activation, this sense of play, right, that you could take a simple idea and go underneath the surface, go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think that's the message, right? Is that creativity itself, if you're disciplined, you practice it every day, that you can become and change the world through those ideas. And so after that, they said, hey, Marlon, the ICA, they reached out and they said, would you like to have a Foster Prize? And I was lucky enough to receive the 2021 James and Audrey Foster Prize. And I made a switch, right? I love painting, and this was an opportunity for me to get back to color. Something I loved, I grew up with, was incorporated in the back recesses of my brain. And so these pieces were of saints, and the series was called If Black Saints Could Fly. And each of these saints represented a form, a person, a doorway, a path. So in closing, art is important. It's essential to our growth in our communities. Young people need to have it. I'm a teacher. I teach every day. And at its core is, how do we identify difference? How do we identify what we believe can change the world? No one will know until you give that young person the tools, until you allow them the opportunity to go deeper underneath the surface and express what you have. Thank you so much. Let's sing.